Hey, welcome everybody back to the Tiki Freak Show. We are so excited to be starting 2024 off in style because we got a great guest with us today. Like I said, we are the Tiki Freaks podcast show, part of the TikiFreaks.com, where we like to keep Tiki fun, young at heart, celebrating Polynesian pop art, culture, and the best drinks from the Dons, the Vicks, and all the rest. And today, hopefully, can find about some of those drinks from across the country and all these cool home tiki bars. My name is Jim, otherwise known as Rum Bum Jimmy. My partner in crime today,
Cheeseman of Paradise, fellow tiki lover.
Cheeseman, you're coming to us from your own home tiki bar, which is very cool. Do we have a name for that?
Not yet. I should. Like Quince Lair or something like that, because there's a lot of Jaws themed stuff and all that.
But everybody, we are so excited to be talking to the renowned author and photographer Tom Jaynes, aka Tiki Tom-Tom. That's what we're going to call him. We're talking about his awesome book, which I have right here with me, POLYNESIACS, Tiki at Home. It is a comprehensive catalog, travelogue, advice book about home tiki bars from all across the United States. Tom, it is so great to have you with us today, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate the invite. Absolutely. Aloha. Yes, some people are calling because I have a background in higher ed. They're like, it's a textbook, Tom. It feels like a textbook. No intention to write a textbook on tiki, but yeah, it's kind of hefty.
But you know what? A textbook, it's not. Maybe I can see it because remember when you're back in school, back in college, you had to go in and buy your books, and the bigger ones cost like so much money, and they broke your shoulder to carry them around. I don't know. I've looked through this thing. I love all the photos in here, and we're going to jump in here in just a second. But I got to tell you, this definitely, it doesn't feel like a textbook. It definitely feels like a work of love. And why don't you, just for those who may not know who you are, tell us about your own tiki story. How did you get into this crazy tiki world, and just introduce us to you?
Yeah, I don't think my story is much different from a lot of tiki folks. It was a bad cocktail that got me into tiki. I had some friends. I was living in a house. I had done all this kind of mid-century stuff, and they were like, "Hey, if you got a mid-century house, you got to have some tiki mugs." And so I was like, "Okay." So I decided one night I'm going to make a tiki drink, and man, it was really bad. And I don't like to fail at things, and so. That's really what got me started. I was like, I got to make this drink better. And so this is more than 10 years ago. I was working at the time, and I started visiting tiki bars. I was like, there's got to be better drinks than this. And I was like, wait, these drinks are amazing. And that just got me into it. Every trip I would take for work, I ended up visiting some tiki bar across the US, and one thing led to another. And my conversion experience, I call, is the Mai Kai. When I finally got to the Mai Kai, I was like, this is it. I love this place. I don't want to leave.
Hey, wait, you and Luke here, Cheeseman of Paradise share that tiki birth as well. Right, Luke?
Kahiki was one of the tiki palaces.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong state.
Oh, yeah.
Wrong state.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Mai Kai's Orlando, Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah.
Sorry, we interrupted you. So
no, go.
No, you're saying how like a
after the Mai Kai at that point, I just kind of kept going, and before I even thought about what would end up being this book, I basically had visited, I think it was close to about 40 public tiki bars at that point.
Wow.
So I was into tiki. I was very much into tiki, and in terms of. You asked me 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, was I planning on writing a book about home tiki bars? I would have been like, what? It was never my thought to write a book. What I wanted to do 2.5 years ago basically is retire from my job in higher education as a administrator and take like a blowout road trip across the US and visit every public tiki bar that I could, just have a good time. And it was COVID.
Yeah.
And so, when I started planning out my road trip, it was like every website I would go to for public bars were like, we might be open And so I was like, hey, I'm driving like 2,000 plus miles. Do I really want to like just go to bars that might be open? So I had posted, I had just pledged to Fraternal Order of Moai, and I pledged around the time.
Wait. What's that? What is that?
Fraternal Order of Moai. It is the fraternal order of people who are Polynesiacs, basically. They also have their birthplace actually in Columbus, Ohio as well. We might talk about that later in this book, in your podcast. But yeah, they are, we basically, it's a fraternal order that's all about people who love Tiki, but, it's really also about giving back. So we do a lot of fundraising, things like that. Their event every summer is Ohana, which is at Lake George, and it's an amazing Tiki conference, but raises a lot of money for charity, which is a great organization. So, So yeah, I had pledged to FOM, and I just put out on the boards, I'm thinking about taking this trip. Should I do it? That kind of stuff. And people started responding back and saying, well, Tom, why don't you go ahead and make the trip and come visit my home bar? Now, I'll tell you, when they said, come visit my home bar, I'm just going to be flat out honest. I was like, oh, well, they're going to have a nice little corner in a room. It's going to be a little, nice thing. And there'll be a plastic stirrer, and we'll have some fruity punch in a cup. And then they started sending me pictures of their bars. And I was like, dang. So I was intrigued, and I was like, okay, well, maybe I should do this. And so in that planning for the first trip, I had around 18 to 20 invitations across the U.S. from Fraternal Order of Moai people. And I was planning on doing a trip around 5 weeks. And I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll visit all of those. And I thought, why not just focus on home bars? And so I started looking at Instagram, Facebook, and anywhere that I was traveling across the U.S., I would try to find a spot where I would stop for the night. And if there was a home Tiki bar somewhere on Instagram, I would reach out and say, hey, you don't know me from Adam, but I want to come visit your home Tiki bar, and I want to take some pictures. And would you mind if I wrote a story about it? And so that basically turned into a 5-week trip where I ended up visiting 35 home Tiki bars across the U.S.
So this was after you retired, so to speak. And
this was literally 2 weeks after I retired. I jumped in my Tacoma truck and I started driving towards California.
Nice.
And so, yeah, 35 bars in that one. And I enjoyed the process. I was writing stories about each bar. When I first started the first couple of bars, I was like, I thought I was going to do kind of a review, like, oh, this bar has nice drinks. It has nice decor. The people are nice. No. When I started interviewing and talking with the people, they were telling me such great stories about why they were obsessed with Tiki that I was like, that's really more interesting. And so I started writing about the people, and those stories just kind of kept coming. And the 5 weeks that I did turned into additional trips. I went up to the Northeast and did more bars. I went to Florida, did another 10 bars. At that point, I had gotten the attention of Wonk Press, Matt Petrick, and his wife, Carrie. And they were like, we would be willing to turn this into a book. I was like, okay, that sounds fun. Not really realizing all the work that would be involved in that. And so we had conversations, like Carrie was like, well, show me where you've been across the US. And so I showed her the map that I had. And she was like, well, you haven't done anything in the Pacific Northwest. And I was like, yeah, but like, that's a long way to drive. And she's like, well, it'd be really nice if you could go up to some bars in the Pacific Northwest. So I ended up doing a trip actually to Portland and Seattle, ended up adding another 10 bars.
Portland's got some good ones.
Yeah. So that,
well, I don't know about the home ones, but I know about the public ones.
Yeah. So that puts me up to about 60 bars at that point. And then I get the attention of this guy named Sven Kirsten. And Sven reaches out and basically says, we're doing
book right here.
Yeah, exactly. We're doing a really nice event for the closing of Oceanic Arts. And I think you should come do a quick workshop about your tour across the US, doing all these home bars. And so when I had come through California the first time, I purposely only did a couple of bars in my very first trip because I had reached out. A friend of mine was like, hey, I'm doing a book on Southern California home tiki bars. And I was like, okay, I'm giving you space to do that. But by the time I got the invite back, that book basically wasn't going to happen. And so I was like, I'm free to talk to people in Southern California. And so I did 15 home bars in 10 days.
Wow.
That was fun. I'm not sure feels the same love, but it was a lot of fun. And that was, when you look at my map, or you'll see this kind of cluster of California at this point.
Well, since you brought it up.
Yeah. So it looks like, like the epicenter of earthquakes in Southern California, right? That's all the bars, there's 15 bars basically that I got on that last kind of leg of the trip. Wow. So yeah, the strings are basically me driving all the way across the US, and back at this point. It was a great trip.
So all of these adventures resulted in the book, Polynesiacs, Tiki at Home. So this book is available. How can somebody get their hands on the book?
Direct through Wonk Press. And if you can go to any of my stuff, Instagram or Facebook or whatever, my website's polynesiacs.com, and you can find links to the book directly at that point. So
yep, that's how I got it. So Luke, do you remember when we first met Tom?
Yeah, over at Tiki Caliente 2023, we were there, and you did kind of a little panel thing there, and came with the drink and all that, and you gave kind of a presentation of some of the different stuff and like pictures showing what was about to be out in the book. And then some of our friend Bill got the book ordered immediately. And then since then, we've been talking about when are we going to start our journey, not necessarily to make a book, but to just kind of experience a little bit of your journey. So
we want to follow in your footsteps as much as possible and feature these bars and home tiki bars on the website, on the podcast here. That's what our goal is to do. And Luke and Bill was supposed to be here with us today. He's a screenwriter, but also he teaches screenwriting at some university. So he's on his way driving down to San Diego right now. He will probably stop off at a couple of those bars before he gets back home today, because it's raining and nobody wants to be driving in it right now. But so, and Luke, you brought up Tiki Caliente. What got you out to Tiki Caliente, Tom? Tiki Tom-Tom?
Well, at that point, I had submitted the book for publication. It was ready to be printed. Actually, when we met at Tiki Caliente, the book actually hadn't even been released. It was on a boat from China to us at that point. So yeah, at that point, I was starting to promote the book and having conversations. Now, the thing I love about doing those presentations is not only did I get to meet, an amazing amount of people with crazy great home bars, I did learn something from the process. And so, the book is interspersed with what I call nav points. And so people who are building home bars, I hope what I do in the book is give them some questions to think about, to help them learn from those that have gone before them, basically, and created these amazing home bars about things to consider, in terms of that journey. So,
Luke,
now, what were some of the commonalities you saw in some of the bars, and especially kind of separate questions, and what kind of drinks did you find that people tended to serve?
Yeah, it was interesting to me. I thought that I would end up drinking more similar drinks throughout the trip, but it ended up, I think maybe a classic 44 Mai Tai, which is actually what I'm drinking right now, was the most common drink. But I would say it was probably only 20% of the 75 bars that I went to. Everyone was serving me their favorite cocktail or something that they were, interested in. And they knew that I was going to all these home bars, so they always wanted to provide me with something that was slightly different or unusual and that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I tasted some great stuff. Great.
Did you have any personal favorites that kind of stuck out, or you're like, oh, I got to learn, the recipe might be available online or stuff? Like if we as Tiki Freak type people and home builder type bars is like, oh, this is a really good one.
I haven't asked for the recipe, but Karen said that she'd be willing to share it with me at some point. But the Chi Lounge in Riverside, California, she served me a drink there that was kind of an umami. Yes, that's.
I'm showing the Chi Lounge right now.
Yes. So Karen served me this amazing drink that was just, there's a picture I think somewhere in the book or either on my blog about the drink as well. But it was this kind of coconut umami like drink. It was really amazing. That one definitely stood out because it was unusual.
It's page 242 in your book. I'm going there right now.
Yeah.
That's
cool. Chi Lounge is an amazing space. And what's fun about the Chi Lounge is I love that it breaks the rules from what some people consider to be the golden rules of tiki bars. And that is there's natural light in the space. So I use Karen and Fabio's bar as a wonderful example of how you can use natural light in a home tiki environment to its advantage. Is their space is just drop dead gorgeous.
It's amazing. Can you talk and since not everybody's going to be able to watch this video, a lot of people will be listening to it on their download the podcast. Can you talk about this room? Because I'm looking at it. This is not the corner of a house. This is not, doesn't even look like just an extra room. What is this?
No, it's definitely a room in there. And the rest of the house is gorgeous too. It's all mid-century modern. But okay, so the fun story I would tell you about Karen and Fabio's is you'll notice from the pictures, all those mugs, right?
Yeah.
So Karen, the fun thing is that when I walked into the room, you see all these mugs. There's actually room dividers with mugs as well. So on this picture on the left, that's actually a room divider where there's mugs on both sides of that cabinet.
Nice.
And Karen, proudly told me, she's like, I'm very proud of myself because I have reduced the amount of mugs I have. And so I was like, well, this is a lot of mugs.
Reduced? Oh my gosh.
So how many mugs do you have currently? She's like, yes, I only have 800 mugs at this point. And I was like, 800 mugs. So of course, the question that you have to ask Karen at that point is, how many mugs did you have before you got to 800? And I think she told me somewhere between 1,200 to 1,400 mugs. And so she is a serious collector, as you might see, of tiki mugs. Wow. When she buys a mug, for example, she buys every color and every offering of that particular mug. So she truly is a collector. It's not just, I like this pretty color. She buys the whole lot from what she loves. So, and she's got, I would say, the most impressive collection of tiki mugs that I saw on my trip. So.
Page 242 through 245. If you have the book and check it out, that is pretty impressive. That is super impressive. Hey, listen, since we're talking about home tiki bars, I notice you got a little space there behind you. What is this?
Yeah, this is in progress. So this is Yojo right behind me. Pardon my screen, but it's a 2-story tiki.
Wow. It's awesome.
And this is from Frank Semiotics, or Tiki Rancher in Georgia at this point. He came in and actually installed that for me at one point. I call it Yojo because the name of my home tiki bar is Queequeg's Coffin, which is a reference to the character in Moby Dick. If you've read Moby Dick, you understand what the coffin has to do with. And this is my collection of, black velvet. I actually just finished some of the routing for these frames at this point. I'm kind of proud of starting to learn how to route.
Oh, you did that yourself?
I did that myself. Yes.
That's very cool.
As a result, I got to give props here. As a result of visiting all these people, across the U.S. who were doing this and learning from them and the skills, big shout out to Derek in Southern California, who is just an amazing kind of artist with regard to the kind of routing he does. His whole bar, South Pacific Room, which is also in the book, is quite amazing.
So I heard you say that you attended Oceanic Arts, the closing ceremonies down there.
Did, yes.
Yeah. Luke and I, or Cheeseman in Paradise, and myself, we were able to attend that as well. It's a little bit off topic, but what has the world of tiki lost with the closure of that place?
Well, particularly the world of home tiki is that we've lost kind of a central source, right? Because the thing I've heard from everyone with the closing of Oceanic Arts is like, who do we go to? Who are you sourcing things from? And so, it's a loss because it was, that's probably not the best thing, but it was, it was the Home Depot of home tiki. It was where you went to get your stuff. And it was kind of a mecca. I mean, people visited there because it was a destination. And so, yeah, it's quite a loss.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Now, Cheeseman here, he is from Columbus, Ohio. So there is a particular tiki bar. I mean, you've got a couple of them listed. You might have more now, but so we found one of them in Columbus, Ohio, which is kind of cool. That it seems like it's a little hotbed for some tiki home bars there. On page 374 of your book, you talk about Rancho Kahiki Tiki Bar. I've got a couple of photos there. Could you tell us a little bit about this one?
Absolutely. So Rancho Kahiki. So this is actually the longest running, the oldest home tiki bar that I visited. 17 years of being a home tiki bar.
Oh, seriously? Wow.
Of course, that's getting close to 20 now because my trip was 2.5 years ago at this point. So on this picture you see right here, that table is the birthplace of the Fraternal Order of Moai.
Oh, are you serious?
I am serious. So that is where people gathered, just kind of figure out, couldn't we create a society of people who love tiki at this point? And so the story I actually tell in the book is the creation of Fraternal Order of Moai at that table. And Elise and Jim have the most wonderful, it's the entire basement of their home. It's 3 or 4 rooms at this point.
Amazing.
And they most of their collection are things from the Kahiki. They right there in Columbus, they were, very much present when the Kahiki started to sell off their items at this point. So a lot of the things they have are historic and quite valuable from the Kahiki.
Cheeseman, that's where you kind of got your love of tiki, right?
Yeah. So I grew up as a kid spending my birthday there. So this is an actual original Kahiki mug from my childhood we had the virgin kid drinks and stuff. And I'd do the steaming punch a lot. They had these volcano meatballs, all sorts of things. So I never got to experience the true tiki drinks, but they still made the kid versions. And it was just a fun place with all the aquariums and with all the tiki decorations. So it's cool to see that, that went to a new home and is also giving tribute to that place. Do you know what part of Columbus it was?
Where Jim and Lisa's home is?
Yeah.
I'm not going to remember Columbus well enough to tell you at that point, but it's not far from.
I think this is a picture in your. I'm trying to get over it. Here's a picture of them.
Yep.
They were.
Yeah, that's in front of the Kahiki right there.
Oh, it is?
Right, when they were young.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Nice. I got to ask you, Tom. The world. I wasn't alive, or I was alive, but wasn't aware of when we had the great tiki palaces that used to be over. Now we have one in Fort Lauderdale. That's all that's left. Or are there more that you're aware of that maybe don't get as much attention?
Well, I mean, certainly I'm very partial to the Maikai. There are a couple that I would come to mind. One is the Trader Vic's in Atlanta.
Yeah, I love that one.
It's one of the longest, running clubs at this point. And so, I certainly would draw people to that, especially because the Trader Vic's recently have been closing other locations. We feel like it's really tenuous. And, with the Maikai closing for several years, but thank God it's going to be back soon.
Do you know when it's opening? I guess
no one really knows at this point, but what we're hoping is hopefully this summer. It'd be great if it could happen during the Hukilau during the summer, but.
I'm sorry, you're talking about tiki palaces and how we need the ones that are around. We need to support them, especially Atlanta.
Yeah. Certainly. That's the one that comes to mind is Trader Vic's Atlanta at this point. There are certainly many more.
When I first moved to LA, which is by the way, I'm in Los Angeles, I think, and Luke's in Los Angeles as well. And you are coming to us from, is it North Carolina?
North Carolina, yes.
So we are across the country. This is great.
Yeah, I'm East Coast Tiki.
Yeah. West Coast Tiki here. So when I first moved to town, they had the big Beverly Hills Trader Vic's. And that was probably 3 years before I really started having a love of tiki. And so, man, oh man, I missed it. I missed an opportunity to get on something that was something. Then I went to the one in Portland, Oregon. They had the great big giant Trader Vic's, which I guess shut down or had a something. I guess they were all shutting down. So it is kind of crazy to think that we're in this sort of this renaissance era of tiki in pop culture and our Polynesian pop, as Sven calls it. But you'd think that we'd have more of these restaurants kind of being able to sustain themselves. They did make the announcement last year, and we'll see what happens. The Dons, the Beachcomber down in the Florida area.
Yeah.
Marie from out here at Tonga Hut is fantastic. So I kind of trust her. So, and she's a true tiki lover. So hopefully something will be done there. But
yeah, I love Marie's creations. Yeah.
Oh, she's great. Anyways,
so what's going on, Jim, with all the Dons popping up? That you mentioned something?
Yeah. It's a chain of, it's called Tiki Docks. And they're opening across Florida, maybe some other states down there, but they've licensed or bought. I guess somehow they're being able to use the Dons the Beachcomber name to open up portions of their restaurants. I don't know do you know anything about that, Tom?
Not much more than you do at this point. Yeah, that's the same descriptor I would say. They're starting in Florida. It's going to plan to be a chain. Their idea is that it would spread nationwide, just like the original Trader Vic's. So yeah, it'd be great if it works. And certainly with people like Marie at the helm, I'm like, yeah, I've got faith. So
I have faith in Marie. I don't want to sound like a downer, but I saw some of the renderings of some of the stuff. Here's the deal. As a person, I'm a Florida boy, so I used to live there. And this is a question I want to ask you. Whoops.
Sorry about that.
We got to hurry up here so I can go get me one of those drinks. No, so there's always discussion about what is or tiki, what's true tiki. When we talk about, because in Florida, you go drive up and down the Keys, every bar without walls on, they call it a tiki bar. Sure. Oh, our hotel has a tiki bar. You walk out back and they have some chairs underneath a thatched roof. I'm like, well, okay, I'll take what I can get here. Do you have any tiki drinks? No, but so for your description for your book, what was the criteria for a home tiki bar?
Yeah, so I actually spent 2 of the nav points talking about the difference between authenticity and eccentricity is actually what I call it at this point.
Okay.
Basically my general rule was there needed to be a tiki in the bar for me. That's the general rule that, that Sven would use as well. But, there's lots of really cool, home bars that aren't tiki bars that I could have visited as well. But if there was a tiki in the bar, I visited it. and basically, they run the gamut. So there were bars that I visited, like examples, like in Los Angeles, where, I visited the Hala Kahiki, and they are very much around authenticism, being authentic with regard to tiki style at that point. An example I could give you is they are so authentic that they even, when it comes to the type of plants that are in the space, they do not use silk plants because in the 1950s, you wouldn't have seen silk. You would have seen plastic plants. And so they actually put plastic plants in their space because it's very authentic to that period.
Wait, where is this bar you're talking about in Los Angeles?
Los Angeles, very close to. One night, I was very fortunate to be able to go to Sven's house as well as Michael and Alan's house, which is where they had the Hala Kahiki. And so I did.
Oh, it's a home bar. Okay. I was like, I thought it was
a home bar. Yes.
Nice.
And so, yeah, that would be my example of probably the most authentic style. Nice. But, that's a range basically that goes all the way to what I call eccentric. And eccentric is I got one tiki in there, but, the other things are different styles. The example you're going to see in the eccentricity book is a Star Wars, stormtrooper in the middle of your tiki bar. Those are the kinds of things where people are mixing all different kinds of pop culture references. So
yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know if you probably saw ones with what I have a lot of Jaws themed stuff in mind. So don't know. Did you ever see anything that was Jaws?
I didn't see Jaws infusion, but yeah. So I need to come visit. Sounds like
it's you open invitation. It is a nautical like I think a lot of people we've kind of expanded a little bit. Some people aren't excited about that. I get it. Like at Tiki Caliente last year, I know like Luke and I were there, and he a lot of people loved Luke's costume for one of the nights when we had the room parties. He was a surfing Batman from the 1966 series where Batman goes surfing or goes out in the water. And there's actually a black velvet painting of surfing Batman in one of the tiki bars here in town. So it seemed appropriate, but some people were like, what? Why are you at a tiki convention dressed like that? So I guess there is still kind of like prickliness around what is acceptable and what's not. And I tell you what, Tiki Caliente is such a fun time. I love going out to the desert, going to that event.
Yeah, it is definitely one of my favorite events.
So we don't have a lot of time left with you, but I do want to ask you about another tiki bar that I hope to visit soon. I traveled to Orlando quite a bit, and Scott Muir is one of he's our web programmer here, and he's also one of our hosts. He was not able to meet us today because he's got to work. Sucks to be him. But anyways, he's looking forward to visiting some of these home tiki bars, but especially this one right here. The Cannibal Lounge in Orlando looks just stinking amazing. It's on page 86 of your book. Can you tell us a little bit about this one?
Absolutely. So Rob and Trisha's bar, it's stunningly gorgeous. I think part of what really makes this space is how tall the space is. So there's so much height. It feels like a tiki cathedral, if you will, because there's so much height. And they did such a wonderful job with it, with the tiki, of course, that's behind the bar, which kind of accentuates that kind of height. But it's just such a gorgeous space. And I would say, Rob and Trisha's space, Cannibal Lounge, is very much authentic to tiki as well. It's very much the classic style.
Yeah.
And they have, a wonderful collection of black velvets, of lamps, of all kinds of things at this point. So, it's a cool space.
I'm looking at it like it is a very tall. Is this in their home or is this out? Oh, yeah. I see a doorway into the rest of the house there.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of an atrium porch that's on the back of their house, but it is part of the house. It's not an outdoor space. And they actually have more than one space in their house that is tiki. Like a lot of people that I visited, once your collection starts to grow, it goes beyond your home bar and into the rest of your house. So, yeah.
I think that's true. Luke.
Well, you talked about the natural lighting. Can you tell us a little bit about the tiki lighting that you kind of saw at different places and how sometimes I've even seen, and you probably saw in some of yours, where even people like hook up screens or monitors to kind of create little windows, almost like they're underwater or other things. Can you talk a little about lighting and maybe special effect type stuff?
Sure. Well, the one thing I like to tell people with regard to lighting is just to remind them that the ultimate lighting goal is to create dusk.
Yeah.
And what that means often, and in order to create that dusk, I will ask people, like, how many lamps is enough lamps in a tiki bar? And of course the answer is, I don't have enough lamps. So everybody wants like hundreds of lamps in the ceiling. In order to keep that kind of dusk and tiki feeling, you need it to be dark, which means the more lamps you have, probably the lower wattage and the more control that you need over those lamps. And so dimmers, low wattage lamps, and things like that are all very important.
Yeah.
The other thing I heard over time that people don't think about when they first start installing light is that people tend to go all out for colors and flame bulbs. I know, a friend just recently posted is like, I finally realized I had too many flame bulbs in my space. And that's because you don't need all that distraction. It is nice to use LED color effects from time to time, but I think the best kind of lighting environment is where you've got some constant light with some, just normal kind of low wattage bulbs and other bulbs that change colors. And I'd say use those flame bulbs sparingly. But yeah, I mean, lighting is such an important concept in a bar. And, one of my favorite experiences ever is walking into Tonga Hut, North Hollywood, and basically not being able to see for the period of about 3 minutes.
I know, it's crazy.
Yeah. So that is the experience you want to recreate, right? So when you walk in the bar, you're like, it takes a while for your eyes to adjust and start to take things in. And so a lot of people are trying to recreate that. And it's a pretty low light situation to recreate.
Our our friend Bill, I wish he was here right now, because one of the funniest memories I have of Bill, the lights in there are so low. He banged up his knee twice within 20 minutes on the same table, falling on the ground. It was, we don't want to laugh at other people's
profanities like out of nowhere, just quiet. Mine sipping tiki drinks, and all of a sudden he gets up, crashes into a table that just has like a little kind of flickering something on it that he just didn't. But notice.
It's exactly what me and Luke were heading out the back door, and then we just heard. We're like, oh, Bill must have kicked that table again. It's hilarious, but. We got to get Bill back on here. You mentioned the Tonga hut. Were you able to visit the one in Palm Springs while you were out there?
I have been to both. Yes. Oh, yeah. Actually, when it was at Tiki Caliente, I was able to go to the Tonga hut there. So,
yeah, that one's a little bit more well lit, and that one is more. That one's open air.
That one's open
out on the street, but it's more fun at nighttime. This is true. I like it when at nighttime.
So I got my plaque on the wall there at Tonga Hut. So I completed the grog log and everything. So
I have finished the grog log, but I have not yet completed my plaque. I got to get that on the wall. So one thing that Luke and I were talking about I looked in your book, and you kind of discussed a little bit, and then we'll kind of start wrapping up here. Is as you traveled the country and you saw and I'm going to pull up your map here, as you know. A lot in Los Angeles, some down in Florida, up in the up the Northwest there, and all across the country. I know that some of these bars are like you were describing, like 20 years older or older. Did you notice any quote unquote trends or anything that a lot of people were doing? Anything that's really popular with home tiki bars?
Oh, it's a great question. This may be a bit off topic from what, but I'll tell you, one of the things that I've noticed is the influence of Disney around tiki style. So what I actually see is a lot of people who are creating more adventure Disneyland, Disney World type spaces.
Yeah.
And that means a lot of layering, a lot more layering actually than you probably would see in classic tiki style. And so there's always this expectation for like, you're going to be better than the Joneses. You better have like 5,000 things in your home tiki bar. And so there is this kind of like, everyone wants to get a lot of stuff in their bar. And the thing I will say is that I don't think that's necessary. I really do think that you can have a basic collection and create a beautiful space. Don't put yourself under the pressure that every home bar has to be a adventure style kind of multi-layered look. There's a lot of great bars out there with some amazing art that people are great. And the difficult thing these days is it's not easy to find tiki in the wild, right? So you're probably going to artists actually that are creating new works at this point in order to put things in your bar. And so so I would say in terms of the trends that I was seeing at this point, the trend is relying on artists of today, the revival artist, actually to help, populate and put things in your bar.
That's amazing. And I got to call Bill. And since he's in San Diego, got to tell him real quick. He's got a Kalima. I tell you what, this bar in San Diego, I'm looking through your book right now. That's amazing. That's a separate structure all by itself out in, I guess, their backyard area.
Absolutely.
With tiki torches.
Didn't they say Kalimar and Temple of Doom and Indiana
Kalima.
Jones? Kalima.
You got it. That's right. Kalima is a reference. It's basically what happened to them one night is that, they were basically serving drinks out of a bowl at this point, and someone yelled, "Kalima, Kalima!" Everyone starts shedding their shirts at this point, and it's become kind of their kind of ritual at their home bar these days.
That's cool. Oh, I see that they have a collection of the famous Bali High tiki mugs there as well from Bali High, San Diego. Listen, we don't want to keep you much longer. Cheeseman, do you have a question, a final question for him?
So yeah, with all these bars you visited, did anybody give you any take-home things as a present that you put in your bar, or did you see anything there you like so much you're like, I'm going to get my own of this that you're now kind of displaying in your own bar?
That's cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, I was gifted with several, glassware from their bars, things like that. So, I started to have a collection of some of the glassware for the bars that I visited. Certainly coasters and swizzles and, all the kind of things that home bars are putting together. So yeah. There's actually a picture at the end of the book with all the stickers and things like that I've gotten from all the different bars.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Because they've created their own branding and they're having that for visitors, or they sell them and all that. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So as of the book, you were up to 75 spaces. I think I read online you've started the 80s now.
Yeah, so shameless self-promotion. I'm actually getting ready to release 8 more stories at this point.
Nice.
And so I'm actually at bar 89. And my goal is to finish 100 before this summer. And so when I reach 100, I actually will start on book 2, which is not actually about home bars, but it'll still be about Polynesiacs. And so the second book, what I'm hoping to do is do another road trip across the US. And I would love to talk with artists, musicians, carvers, all the people who are crafting the revival movement. So
that's fantastic. Please reach out to us. We want to feature you all along the way. We'll be your little Tiki podcast extra person in the seat with you. Anyways, this has been great. I do have
a Tonga hut or something sometime.
Yeah, we'll take out for a drink. I do have one more question though.
Okay.
If people are you doing any events or speaking engagements or anything that people can find you?
Next one coming up is Florida, Tiki A Go-Go in early April. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing a presentation there. I'll do actually a panel of all of the home bars that I visited in Florida.
That's in Orlando, right?
Including Rob and Trish, the Cannibal Lounge you just talked about. So yeah, they'll be a part of my panel.
Awesome. That is fantastic. Well, listen, Tom, we have really enjoyed having you on the show today. If you're ever back in a part of the country again where we are at, we're going to get you a drink, and maybe we'll get him a Tiki Freak shirt too to go along the way. But anyways, thank you so much for joining us today. Luke, do you have anything else before we head out?
Just if someone's looking to get into home tiki bar, where would you suggest they start?
Oh yeah, first with this book.
I wouldn't mind buying a copy of the book and and reach out. Certainly I also talk in the book about all of the resources that are available on the social media. There's so many supportive groups, Tiki builds and things like that are available through Facebook and Instagram and so forth, and just a loving community of people that are willing to support each other. So reach out, create community, do things fun together.
Awesome. And where can people follow you on social?
Yep. Facebook, Tiki Tom-Tom, Instagram, Tiki Tom-Tom. There's a Polynesiacs site on Instagram, as well as my overall blog, which is polynesiacs.com.
Wow. You retired just to get a lot more busy, huh?
To do what he loves. Not
doing what you love. That's the way you live life. Anyways, mahalo. This is to you, my friend.
Mahalo.
Cheers. This has been such a great time. We can't wait to meet up. All right, guys. Follow us here at thetikifreaks.com. You can follow me at James D. Fry. Where can people follow you, Cheese?
Well, you can follow me, I guess, for this at the Tiki Freaks on Instagram.
That's right. We'll see you guys there. Keep Tiki fun, guys. Bye-bye.